Oh, we get a countdown.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, Riverside's like that. Welcome
Riverside.
back, episode 48. I'm here with someone that I care about very deeply, a very talented man, Justin Meli. How you doing, man?
Good. Very good. It's good to see you again, man.
It's been a while. It's been a fair long while,
It
actually.
has been. Yeah, last time we chatted, I was actually thinking about that on my way to the studio today. It was when the music hall closed down,
Yep, that
and
was
we had
June-ish.
it's back in June. Yeah,
Yeah, we
crazy.
did the live
Lots.
stream thing. You came on for that. That was fun.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That was good. I had a great time watching all the different people and what they had to say. It was nice. But yeah, it's been a time. Been a minute, and lots has happened. Lots has changed. Uh, we were just chatting just before we pressed record, and lots in my career path has changed in terms of with COVID and the music industry, how things are going. So it's been interesting. It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, how has COVID made you reevaluate your business model in the future?
Well, it's made me think, in a number of ways, like in terms of how to reinvent myself. Not so much drop what I've been doing. I'm still engineering, producing. I've got a couple projects on the go now, and we'll talk about some of that stuff for sure, more in detail. But it's more just thinking about ways that I can really make money passively and continue to, at the end of the day, make ends meet, not have to like look for another career path, or and maybe a different part-time job or something. I obviously would do that, but right now I'm lucky enough that with CRB and then the few gigs that I do have going on, I'm doing okay, so I can hold out for now. But yeah, it's just, I've been doing a lot of writing recently, which is something that that's how I started doing all of this. How I got into the music industry was being a songwriter. And from basically my graduation from Fanshawe until this past year, I hadn't really done much writing. It was a lot of producing, a lot of engineering. I was really pursuing that heavily. So it was, obviously the pandemic is horrible, and was when it hit, it kind of struck everybody, like took everybody by left field. But it gave me an opportunity to look back on that, and my writing, and what I was doing, what I kind of started doing, and why I started doing music in the first place. So it was great because I got a lot of opportunity, a ton of time to write. And so since the beginning of the pandemic, I've been doing a lot of that, and I've been doing a lot of writing in different genres, which has been a fun sort of experiment for me, because I've been in a reggae band. I've written like folk songs and that kind of stuff, acoustic guitar stuff, all my life. But being able to explore different genres, and I've really taken to loving soundtrack music. Hans Zimmer's become a huge inspiration for me. I've listened to many different soundtracks that he's done, and obviously he's basically a god in that world. And just studying what he does and listening to, and what is really inspiring to me about him actually is just the fact that he kind of had a similar background in music. He didn't go to school for anything like classical music or anything like that. He was self-trained. He had some piano lessons when he was younger. He was in bands. He was in a bunch of synth bands back in the 70s and the 80s. And he said he always had music in his head, and it's just kind of inspiring to hear that, and then to see him be so successful. So I've been really interested and really into writing soundtrack music. So that's been a lot of fun exploring.
Well, it's good.
As well.
It's good that you're able to keep yourself busy and expand beyond what you're doing and go back into that creative process. Let's take it back to kind of just the beginning of all this, because for you kind of like hit immediately and you were hitting the ground running. So let's start back at school. So you went to Fanshawe in London.
That's right. Yeah. So I went to Fanshawe College in London, and that was the 2-year music industry arts program, and that was awesome. Made me sort of I figured out where I wanted to be in the industry, because it's such a vast program, and they They teach you anything from, you know, management to perform. They have a performance element as well, engineering, production, you know, mixing, and everything in between. We do a little bit of audio post production, you know, audio for video and that sort of thing, which I got my feet wet in college with as well, which was fun. But yeah, it's a little bit of everything. So I started there. I initially, like I was saying, went into the program as a singer-songwriter. I wanted to learn how to market myself as a musician, which I did learn a lot about and took a lot from that program. But what I took more out of actually was just the engineering, the technical side of things. And that wasn't actually something I expected to love as much as I did and do. And I, like, essentially when I started with the engineering classes and I was doing the labs, and at Fanshawe, they give you like 3-hour time slots for the studios that they have there. So you know, and they're all through the night because they use the studios for classes. So you can have like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. studio time slots. So you've got to, you know, time yourself out, either sleep for a few hours, wake up at like 2. Yeah, I would be the guy sleeping at the studio waiting for people that didn't show up. So like it became so natural. It became such a love and a passion so quickly that I stopped pursuing the music, like writing, performing. I was in a few bands. I was in a reggae band, which was really cool, a really fun experience for me. Always loved that music, and I met a group of guys that also loved that music. But yeah, I really kind of went down that path of like engineer. So around second year, I talked to my one of my professors, my engineering professor, Dan Broadbeck, who was a huge mentor for me throughout my schooling, and still is. I chat with him from time to time, you know, catching up, getting advice, that sort of thing. Really great guy. He's a Juno winner. He's a Grammy nominated producer, engineer. You know, he's done some really cool stuff. So it's really great to have somebody like that to bounce stuff off of, which is another great thing. Excuse me, sorry. It's another great thing to that program offered, was just the people you're learning from are in the industry still, you know, doing things, have done amazing things. So much, there's a breadth of experience there that really, I you know, if you tap into it, you take a lot from, and so I still am, which is awesome. So
what aspects of producing itself, what aspects of it did make you like fall in love and connect with it on like that deeper level that's made you so passionate about it?
I think the main thing was the connections with people that you're able to build. I love meeting new people. Definitely one of the like shittiest things about this pandemic is not being able to like go to shows and meet new people. It was one of my favorite things, and will happen again. But it would be that, you know, the connect, like, people understanding their vision. You know, art is such a personal thing that when you're producing, like specifically producing, you're really, in my opinion, your job is to bring out what is inside of the artist's head, and you inject your expertise and your experience and that sort of thing into the process, because that's why they're hiring you, and you give your ideas. At the end of the day, it's their creative vision. And so I loved learning different people's creative visions. It gave me different, you know, ways of thinking as a songwriter as well, and a musician. So I think it was just that I immediately like encapsulated me. It really, like, I was like, wow, you can do this, and you can do this with so many different people. And genres too. That was the other thing. I've never really been the type of person to be like, yeah, I love like rock, or I love, you know, this or that. I've worked with all different kinds of musicians thus far in my career, and will continue to. You know, I kind of look up to Rick Rubin in that sense. You know, he's such a genre bender, and I feel like in a lot of ways we live in a post-genre world. It's, you know, it gives me that, I guess, I don't know how to explain it. It's like traveling. you go to a different country, you learn the culture, you come back, you feel it's so you're learning a different genre that I might like. I've recorded bluegrass musicians, jazz musicians, you know, metal bands, folk, pop, like it's all over the place. And I it's all really interesting to me because not only do I bring a different perspective to those genres, because some of them I'm, to be honest, just not as familiar with as others. But they bring a different perspective to me too. So when I go and produce other artists, it's like, yeah, maybe I'll add this instrument here, even though it's not necessarily something I would have done. So I don't know. I think it's just that general, in general, it's that like human connection that, and because it's such an intimate thing when you're producing art, somebody else's art. It's cool.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
when I could see you I remember when Crownlands was recording Rise Overrun, and I came up to visit a couple times during the process,
Yeah.
just seeing the passion between the three of you guys, especially like amalgamating yourself into something like that, like it really brought out a very specific vibe and energy that was just creative, exploring, trying all these different options. And I think that's what translates so well in projects that you're involved with, because you're able to bring something out of someone and help them replicate something while creating something also totally different from what they expected because your involvement with it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that because that's definitely my, you know, my style. I try to listen to the band and bounce ideas back and forth. With Crownlands. It's so different, you know, from other bands because we have such a different connection, you know, with Kevin and Cody and I. We've known each other for so long now, that and we've kind of grown together. I mean, I started, they were my very first project out of college, which is awesome to sort of have that in my like repertoire of work because they're such a great band and they've always been such a great band. I mean, when, you know, when I first saw them, when I saw Cody up on stage, their voice just like totally blew me away. And the way they were drumming and the way that everything sort of like, I can't remember. I think I made a post about it like a while ago when they released their the acoustic record. But it was like an amalgamation of all my favorite genres that kind of came together. And Kevin and I had met actually before I saw them play. He, funny enough, came out to one of my live shows, and we got to talking. And he invited me out to the open mic that he was running at the time at the Atria, and yeah, they got up and he and Cody just tore the place apart. Like the first, they literally like they opened the night up, but that was all I could remember. Well, I don't remember a single thing from that night. And I said to them, I was like, "What are you guys doing? Because like I want to work with you. I'll do it for free. Let's do this. Let's do it right." And Kevin was like, "Oh, you know, I don't know. I'm gonna record in my basement with my, you know, little Tascam recorder." And I'm like, "Okay, listen, take what that you had to record anything and put it towards a studio. Let's book a studio for a few days, like a good studio. And then the rest of it we'll just do in my basement. Like I won't charge you a thing." They ended up the way that they're such nice people that they did end up paying me like a little bit, but I mean like a little bit, like and like not like barely gas money. It was like I did this project because of love, and that's sort of what has maintained our relationship, our professional and friendship, is that we just do things because we like each other and we get along and we fight like brothers, but at the end of the day, you know, like you said, there's that chemistry there. And you do find that with a lot of artists, and that's one thing. Like, just kind of going back to what we were talking about before. That's something I love building and have learned how much I love it over the years of doing this. But with Kevin and Cody, it's totally different because we have so much intertwined. We have, like our careers have intertwined themselves so beautifully, and you know, we get along so well that when we get into the studio together, like we finished producing the cover, the Nina Simone cover, excuse me, Feeling Good, and Yeah, that process was incredible because we were able to jump back into Chalet again, like we did on Rise Over Run. It was kind of like down to the wire, very last minute. We had kind of short notice because it was for an ad spot for Peloton. It is for an ad spot. They got the ad, which is great. But the song choice could not have been more perfect for who they are as people and the times. Like, it's just such a perfect message. It didn't occur to me or any of us really until sort of midway through. We're recording it, we're listening to the vocal and the lyrics, and it's like, holy shit, can I swear this on this?
Oh yeah,
Like, it's
say whatever you want.
yeah. Okay, cool. Like, it totally blew us away because and you have to, that's the thing about doing this, is you have to love what you're doing, and I think it's okay to, like, I don't think it's egotistical to be like, yeah, this fucking rocks, like, because we really were sitting there and we're listening to, like, when we finally finished everything, and Cody laid down their vocal, and it was just, we were just sitting there, and it's like, holy shit, this might be the best thing that we've done together, and we really do feel like that, and having Greg Gordon mix it just like literally just brought it together, glued the whole thing, and he's great to work with.
I think the cover really showed your progression as well as theirs from Rise Over Run to now, especially because just seeing the scale in which they've progressed and also the scale in which you've progressed, it really is that coming together. And same with the acoustic EP, which I didn't tell you was phenomenal as well. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And it's just it's amazing to see this trajectory still going up and up and up and up and up, and like there's no end in sight, which is phenomenal. And I can't wait to see what you guys work on next. What are some of the other bands that you've worked with in addition to Crownlands?
So I've worked, a few other artists I worked with are Dizzy, who, again, amazing people, great group of brothers, and Katie, who and they're like that, simply put, they're amazing people, and they're great songwriters, great creatives. I had the opportunity to work with them here at Chalet. They booked the studio through me for a couple of days, and we did Heavy and Twist, and that was maybe, was that 2 years ago? That could have been 2 years ago. I think it was 2018. Yeah, I'd have to go back on the Instagram, but anyway, they came up to the studio. We did those two songs, and we had such a great time, and just got along so well. And they knew about what I do with Crownlands, mixing live and stuff. So Charlie and I got together, and they were going on tour for it was sort of their first headliner tour across Canada, and they asked me if I wanted to come along. Of course, the answer was yes. So we booked that. That happened, and we just became such fast friends that we ended up doing I engineering their full length record last year, which is, to me, just so insane. I can't believe it was a full year ago that I was out in Quebec doing that with them. But yeah, I'm their front of house. I've been, I engineered Twist and Heavy. I did their last record. I'm sure that we will work together again in the studio some more as time goes on. We've got a similar vibe, as Crownlands. It's just such a good, back and forth in the studio. On the road, on the road is totally different, because like you have to essentially, you're living with somebody in a steel box for weeks, a month, and if you don't get along, that's going to be a problem. So it's easy, obviously, like they're brothers, they grew up together, they've all been friends for years, but having myself enter that, I just feel so lucky to have been like welcomed so graciously, because it is such a, like, it's a tight group of friends, you know what I mean? Family, really. Yeah. So yeah, they're great. I work with Dizzy quite closely, and then another artist I work with, who he's not from Canada. He's from originally born and raised in Haiti. His name's Paul Bobrin, and his parents were in a band, are in an Experience, who are Grammy nominated world music band. They're a huge band. They've got, I think, 13 or 14 members, and they're all Haitian musicians. Incredible music. But Paul does a little bit of a different music, still traditional. A lot of it's in Creole Some of it he's few of it, a lot of the stuff we work on as well are originals, but he similar musical tastes as me, and I think that's a big part of the reason why we get along so well is and work so well together is that we have a similar energy. It's really cool. He lives in New York City. I miss the hell out of him. You know, I've been talking to him recently, and I've been chatting with him all throughout it. You know, thank God, him and all of his circles been healthy. Yeah, it's just I miss him a lot, but he's a really fun client of mine, really close friend. You know, we've done 2 records. We did I've been his like sort of mix engineer. I recorded a bit. So we met at Chalet, the breeding ground for amazing talent, and we, you know, we did a session together. He had his own like producer, his own engineer guy, and they were on their own sort of path, and I was just there assisting to make things go smoothly. And he and I got to talking, you know, really hit it off, and then eventually, I think it was like maybe 6 months to a year later, CMW, we ran into each other just like at the Sheraton. He was coming out of the parking garage. I was going towards the parking garage, and we just happened to, you know, hey, Paul, hey, Justin, what's going on? We were chatting, and I think at that point we exchanged contact information. And then a few days later, he called me and asked if I could come down to the city to do some editing on one of the songs that we recorded at Chalet. And so obviously I was like, yeah, that sounds great. He came down, or I came down, he picked me up from the GO station, went to his buddy's place who had a studio in his basement, and I did some editing for him. And he was like, I don't know, he was just so blown away by, I guess, what I was doing on Pro Tools. And, you know, he had this, like, he's a very creative person, but he's not technical at all, very musical. But so he has these ideas, but he has no idea. So when he hears it perfect and he hears it, it was just totally blown away. It's really small moves, you know, move the drums forward a bit, move the bass back a bit, like just put things in time. But to him, it was like, okay, that makes a world of difference. And I mean, it does. So he, you know, was impressed, and we chatted after that session, and he wanted me to come down to New York City to do basically the same thing for the rest of the songs. And I'm thinking in my head, you know, I could do it from home, but he wanted me to come down. So he paid for my flight. He paid for me. He, you know, put me up at his little studio apartment with him and his partner and his 2 dogs. And, you know, we just hung out. And when Emma, his partner, went to work, we would record some stuff in his apartment. We recorded almost all the vocals for the track were recorded in the middle of like Manhattan. And yeah, it was a really cool experience. So that was the first record. And then the second record, I was supposed to go down to Haiti with him and actually engineer it. But there were budget things, and it ended up being for the because they were shooting a documentary as well on this record. Record's called Rassemblement. Excuse my mispronunciation of it because I don't speak Creole, but it's Rassemblement. And it's on Spotify. You can check it out. It's all over, you know, Apple Music, all that sort of stuff. But they recorded that in Haiti at a recording studio. It's an institute in Haiti for like recording. It's a recording arts institute. So people go there to learn how to record, I think they also have like video and things like that. So it's essentially a school. So they had some of the students recording and probably some of the professors there as well. But they were shooting a documentary. It was all done live. It was a really, really cool mix. Sorting through the tracks, like he sent me, I think it was over 100 gigabytes, and it was one Pro Tools session, and it was just like, I think it was probably 16 or so hours, maybe less. But it was insane. There were probably about 4 or 5 sets, all recorded along sort of the same set of tracks. Yeah, so that was fun, and he's become, again, just like such a close friend. So those 3 kind of keep me pretty busy. Like they're sort of my main you know, recurring clients. I've worked with a ton of indie bands in and around the Durham area as well, and beyond, in Toronto, that sort of thing. You know, Excuses. I just did a record with them back in September with Brian Moncars. I was engineering and he was producing. I've been doing, you know, some projects with him, and Brian and I have worked together for so long that, you know, he essentially hires me for all of his sessions. So we've, you know, I worked with them. Trying to think, Zaftig is a sort of a local indie, like they're not rock, but they're not prog, but it's cool. You got to go check them out. Zaftig is cool. Woolly Mantis is another great band that I work with. They're from sort of the Hamilton, Burlington area, and yeah, just stand-up musicians, stand-up guys, just incredible talent. You know, they're all jazz trained musicians. They all went to Sheridan for jazz. So working with them is, I honestly, I sit back and I feel like I don't even have to do a thing. I just press record and it's like, boom, there it is. They're just so good at playing with each other. I always record them live. It's a cool vibe for sure. You know, a lot of different, like, sort of one-off bands. Those are sort of my mains. I'm trying to think of anybody else, like, sort of more recently that I've done some work for.
I mean, you definitely kept yourself busy, to say the least.
I'm trying. You know, it's tough. I work for myself, so trying to convince bands to record with me it's like, you know, who's Justin Meli? But it's nice to look back on stuff, and it feels nice to know that, like, has success. You know, Crown, like, started. Dizzy they've charted. I feel honored to have worked with Dizzy because of the fact that they've won a Juno. You know, they could have worked with anybody. To have me come out and engineer it, that just means, like, a lot to me as an engineer and as a professional in this industry. It, you know, it kind of shows the type of people that they are. They're, you know, they would rather work with the people they like, and I know. So, you know, a crazy amount, although I feel like I have, in a way, but it's so early on in my career to really tell. I've worked with such quality, you know, such quality people, such quality music, and I feel lucky. I feel lucky to have done that, and it's only been, you know, 5 years into my career.
Oh yeah, and there's so much room for growth, and especially once we figure out all this COVID shit, like, definitely you'll be back at it and working with a lot of different people. So we're actually going to take our first. Oh, so we're actually going to take our first music break and a word from our sponsor, Anchor. Cool. And then we'll be right back at it right after this. We'll see you guys in a few. And welcome back from our music break. And that was a word from our sponsor, Anchor. Once again, thank you to Anchor for sponsoring this episode. So obviously, you mentioned doing live stuff for Crownland and Dizzy. What aspect of the live stuff made you fall in love? Because producing, we already talked about. So with the live stuff, what about the aspect of live like gets you excited?
I love traveling and I love live shows. And it's literally that's what touring is. So it kind of, and it's funny having not done it for so long, you know, between you and me, which it isn't, and I'm very honest about this. I really like touring to me was always the type of thing that I did because the people that I was touring with were pretty much some of my best friends, and I loved them, and it wasn't something I saw for myself like long term. Um, you know, but as I'm like basically landlocked and I'm not traveling and I'm not, it's just like I really realize how much I do actually love it. And you know, I don't want that to like sound negative in any way, because you know, I'm so appreciative of all the opportunities that I've had, but such a homebody. And you know, like that was my most favorite part of tour, and my least favorite part of tour happened to be the exact same thing, and that was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, leaving family, but I also love leaving to explore new places and you know, practice my craft and get better and see all these cool different venues. But I honestly really I fell in love with it, like really in around 2018, I think, was when we were touring down. It was our first tour into the States, and we were seeing some really cool stuff. And like we were touring with Primus, and it was just with Crownlands, you know. And it's just the opportunities, the people that I've met, you know, it really, I reflect on that, and I think about it, and I cannot wait to get back out there, because you know, it's so much fun to mix a live show. It's tough to explain, and I feel so lucky to have mixed all of the different venues that I have, basically from venues like, you know, small sort of, you know, armpit sized bars, all the way to stadiums, you know, and it's like to have done that already at, you know, and I haven't even turned 30. It's just, it's really cool to have had those opportunities. And I feel lucky.
If you could have a preference of which venue size you could mix for the rest of your life, which would you pick in the range from those little armpit bars to stadiums?
It's tough. It's honestly, it's tough to say, but I would say, pardon me, the you know, Phoenix and the Music Hall and basically venues of that capacity, 1,000, 2,000 people venues, and theaters, which I kind of would, not the same, but the capacity wise, it's similar. But I absolutely love mixing in theaters. A lot of people don't. I like it because it's the natural, first of all, the natural acoustics I'm a huge fan of. But it's always such a tight, directed sound, because there's so many materials in an old music venue, an old theater. When you go to a newer music venue, you're usually dealing with like concrete and steel and so many reflections and things like that. And they do a lot of, you know, protecting, like baffling and things like that, that sort of help mitigate those issues. But which is sort of part of the reason why I like both. But that 1,000, 2,000 seat venue, stadiums are a lot of fun. And I long for the day that I can do that again. But to be honest, they're so big that it's like, you know, it's like this beast that you have to wrangle. And my only stadium experience was, you know, and I say stadium experience, but I was mixing on an X32, you know, running into like Jack White's, you know, Brett was his name, Brett's front of house rig. And it's not like I was doing any of the stuff that is required to make a stadium sound the way stadiums sound. But I was exposed to it, which was really interesting. And I got, you know, Tyler Nyquist was so Jack White's crew was insane. They had a lead guy for every job, a lead person, pardon me, for every job, and Brett Emerson, I believe was his name. It's the front of house, and he was like front of house, and then there was assistant front of house, Tyler Nyquist, and Tyler would always get there early. He was always sort of the first one there when we showed up, and all the stuff that he had to do to time align the speakers and tune the room to a specific, and there's a lot of technology that makes it, you know, that much easier than it used to be, but it's kind of insane. The, like, you know, the things he's talking to me about, I have absolutely no idea what he's saying. So it's cool to be exposed to it, and I'm really looking forward to being able to mix stadiums again. But I really do like those smaller-ish venues. They're not small, but medium size, I would say.
Yeah, like the mid-range. Well, I can imagine, especially with the team like Jack White's team, like Jack White, known for tone and room tones and getting an exact sound to translate to each individual show while also making each individual show a unique experience. So I can imagine that's a very intensive process. What was it like touring with the Jack White team?
It was great. They were all so welcoming, and you know, it felt like everybody was like the, you know, our like a little, you know, mom or dad sort of holding our hand, because it was all of our first experiences doing this, and they could tell that we were all so green. But they also could tell that we were all very willing to like do the right thing and work and not, you know, fuck around. And I mean, you can't fuck around when you're dealing with a stadium show that capacity. You know, the biggest venue, and I think the largest size was I think 18,000 people, which are just over 18,000. I'm trying to remember where that was. I think it may have been Halifax, but yeah, big venues. You know, there's a lot at stake, a lot of like things. You know, you have to kind of follow the right procedure. But it was really interesting watching their setup and teardown, because it's obviously unlike anything I've ever seen, because it's at such a grand scale. I think they had like 6 or 7 transport trucks.
Wow.
And yeah, just for all of it, because they brought everything. They brought stage, they brought PA, obviously they brought all of their and mics, instruments, everything. Like they brought literally everything, and backups of a lot of that too. I think 4 or 5 tour buses. It was basically as big as I've ever seen, and seeing them all of like, because everybody had a specific job and everybody had an assistant to help with that specific job. So it was the shit ran so smoothly, and you know, watching it all happen, it's like, oh my God, what's going on? Like there's so much happening, and then boom, it's ready. And sometimes they wouldn't show up for sound check. You know, so Jack White, the way that he wanted everything to happen was essentially because it's a production company that he hired to do the tour. It's a production company out of New York called Firehouse Productions, and they deal with these large international tours. And so they have a team of people, and Jack, his only requirement, or his few requirements for the PA, front of house, everything was everything had to be analog, like no digital consoles. Like they had like a Midas Heritage console at front of house. I think they had a Midas, another Heritage at like for monitors. So everything analog, everything outboard. It was literally, I don't have a picture, but it was essentially a spaceship, a recording studio at front of house. They had a console up front, facing the stage, of course, and then to the side of them, they had this. I think they had about 5 or 6 rolling racks filled with gear, compressors. Like they had 8 distressors, for anybody that knows what those are, at it's just a standard compressor, studio compressor. They had 8 of them for monitors, just for monitors. It was just the setup was like drool worthy for anybody that's into gear. It was like I couldn't keep my eyes off of front of house pretty much the whole night, and while they were mixing too, to see them in action was just it was really cool, because there's a lot of like effects on the fly, and Jack had 3 different mics that he would sing into that all had different things going on. And so everything had to be analog, and every show had to be recorded. So they had 2 recording setups, and one of them, they were both recording at the same time, obviously one as a master and one as a but if either one shut down, the other one would still go. So like they had been on tour when we joined with them. We were on with them for I think 3 weeks or so, 2.5, 3 weeks. But they had already been on tour for like 8 or 9 months, something crazy like that. So they had so many shows of recording of stuff that they had backed up. So if they didn't show up for sound check, Tyler would just play it, get things sort of set up. Brett would come out and then just sort of finalize everything. And he had a set of Mackie monitors sitting on the meter bridge on the console. So it's basically like a studio. It was really, really interesting. I'd never seen anybody set up something like that. But when it was all explained to me, it made a lot of sense, and it was actually quite easy. And it made stadiums feel a lot smaller than they are. Mm-hmm. When I first walked into the first venue, I can't remember where it was exactly. I think it was Edmonton. And it was, whatever stadium is in Edmonton. Again, venues just blurred. For that period of my life, I was on tour basically from September until January. That was sort of my first time having a stint like that of just tour, and then you're off for 5 days, and then you're fucking back on. It was crazy. But with Jack White, we started out in Edmonton, and walking into that stadium, and just kind of looking around, it was intimidating. But the best thing about that tour, aside from the nightly catering, was just the people that we met. They were so, like, the fact that it was such a big production, you think like, okay, these people are going to be road worn, just mind your P's and Q's, don't be an idiot, try to just make a good impression. And I think that's part of the reason why they ended up being so nice. But I also think they were just generally nice people. And we like really hit it off, and it made things feel a lot easier, even though that was like kind of crazy what we were doing. And we found out about that tour 3 days before our first show. We were supposed to be,
when that got announced, I was like, how the fuck are they going to get there?
Yeah, we were supposed to be going on tour with another band at the same time, and we had to cancel that tour, and we had to be in Edmonton in like 3 days. And obviously driving from Oshawa, Ontario, we didn't stop driving.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's just crazy to think. It's like when that tour got announced, I thought literally 2 things. I thought, one, that is literally the perfect tour for them, not only like musically and just experience wise, but just gear wise. Because I know you and Kevin especially are just such fucking gearheads, and you love your gear. And I could imagine just the scale of gear on a Jack White tour, but also how in the fuck are they gonna get there in time?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? We and one of the craziest thing, and the person that kind of had the most had the most run around was Calvin, our guitar tech, because he lives in Ottawa, and he found out about it at the same time we fucking did. Yeah, so he had to get his shit together like 4 hours earlier than us, because at least we had time to pack. He had that packing time. He had to get his shit to Oshawa. So, yeah, like, I mean, he killed it. And again, same kind of vibe. He's a total gearhead. So, and a huge, like, we're all major Jack White fans. Who, I mean, really, who isn't? And he's like the blue. I don't know. I don't know how to describe him, but he's just like he transcends genres. He's just everybody seems to like him. But yeah, he has such a collection of gear, and the amount of shit that he brought with him on stage. He had a Steinway upright piano, I think 1930 something. It was from World War II. It was like airdropped from a plane to the troops during World War II, so that they could, like, I don't know, play at their base or whatever. Like, this is a instrument. He just said Jack White. He just brings old, rare, vintage pieces. I tried to get a look at his pedal board, but it was kind of like everything was sort of taped off. Like he's very secretive about what he's got going on there, I think. But his guitar tech was really cool. Got to chatting with him a bunch, and Calvin actually got to work on one of his amps, which is kind of cool. And then another cool thing that happened, Calvin related. Calvin's sort of like the trainer guy. He has so many trainer amps that I mean, in multiples of trainer amps, and because these all pretty much the entirety, well, all the production they were from Firehouse, which is from New York City, but his techs and all of Jack White's sort of the closer, like the technicians, and I think some of his tour management, they're all from the South. And I guess down in the South, trainer amps are like gold. They're a hot commodity because you don't. It's, I guess, the separation, right? It's like maple syrup, you know. They're like, oh my god, this is amazing. So when they found out Calvin had so many amps, they just had to see them, obviously. So they went over to he's an amp tech as well, and so they went over to his spot, checked out all of his stuff, and they eventually actually, Josh, who he was Jack White's like sort of general instrument technician, but he also actually engineered Lazaretto, and he's Jack White's main engineer. He basically purchased one of Calvin's amps and then used it on the Raconteur's newest record.
Oh wow!
Which is kind of cool. Yeah. Oh, so, and he like messaged Josh, or Josh messaged Calvin rather, and he was like, Jack loves the amp, man. Like, pretty cool. Just kind of cool, you know. Like, he's kind of, you know, Jack White for all intents and purposes, he's a legend. You know, he's a legend, and being able to sit with him, that was one of the coolest things. Mixing live in a stadium, that was awesome. But sitting down, what a rush. But sitting down in front of Jack White while he's smoking a cigar and drinking a glass of whiskey was a different rush altogether. Like, just because I've seen him in movies, I've seen him in music videos growing up, and to listen to all of his records, and there he is. He's just sitting in his chair, and he's inviting us into his green room, and we're like having snacks, and he's smoking cigars, and I don't know. We were talking about like old blues records, and it was just like, it was a fucking cool time, and I just can't wait to get back to that. You know, that's I definitely I miss it.
Oh, for sure. In terms of those two aspects of your life, both producing and live, I'm going to ask you kind of a hypothetical question here. If you only could choose one, which would it be?
It's tough. It's hard for me to say because I've fallen in love with both. If I had to choose, I would say, you know, probably producing and engineering, just because I do eventually plan on having a family. I want to be around for my kids. I don't want, like, I love touring again, you know, and you know, it's not necessarily something that I ever would like want to give up full time. But if I was forced, you know, gun to my head, what do you choose? I would have to definitely choose producing and writing, and, you know, getting into sort of the composing and things like that, because of the family aspect. I feel like, you know, the way that I am, the way that Julia is, you know, we crave that like quality time, and then when we eventually have kids, that's going to be, you know, like that's it. They're my like number one priority. They're already my number one priority. I don't have kids.
You've always given me the vibe of like, you're gonna like love your kids like to that are going to be the
Thank you. I already am a horrible dad joker, so it's, you know, I'm fitting into that well. But I will, yeah, I always loved kids in general. I was a camp counselor. I love working with kids. You know, it's always been something that has been, it's never been like, I don't know if I want kids or not. It's like, yeah, I definitely will have kids. It's just like when, and, you know, when that happens, like, that's going to be, that'll be taking up most of my time for sure. Other than obviously like work, but I don't want to, I don't really see myself taking myself away physically, you know, for long periods of time. I mean, my dad, you know, I think back to my dad, you know, and he's in the magazine industry. And he was flying all over Canada all the time. But it wasn't like, for, you know, he was gone for 2 weeks. He wasn't gone for a month. He'd been gone for like a weekend. He'd been gone for maybe a week. You know, I think maybe the most he ever was away for business was for 2 weeks. But if I go on tour and these tours get bigger, and I'm, you know, and I've got 2 kids at home, and I'm being called out to go on a world tour for 6 months, that doesn't sit right with me, you know. So it's just like, it's about managing that. It's about like figuring out how to steer my career in a direction where I can still enjoy that, because I don't have kids and I really want to tour right now. So you know, it's just a matter of trying to figure out how to balance it. But it's been working. Right now I don't have to figure anything out because I can't fucking tour, but
yeah.
But it was working.
Your kids, do you hope your kids either A, go down like a similar path as you, or B, go along that musician path, and you can like produce a family album?
Yeah, the Justin
Partridge
5.
Family.
Yeah,
there you go.
No,
Justin 5.
Yeah, we're all named Justin. No, I actually I don't really care if that sounds. I don't want that to sound negative. I just want like I've always been the type of person. I mean, you know, again, hypothetical, but it's really like I'm a supportive person when I'm dealing with anybody, especially people that I love. I don't really think about what I want. It doesn't really occur to me when it's something that's for them. It's not about me. So when it's, you know, I'll be just as happy if my, you know, son is a jockey and my daughter has an OnlyFans, successful only, like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Just be happy. Be happy. Do what you want. Do what you love. Like, that's sort of my vibe.
No, and I love that. Definitely the best attitude to have, especially for nurturing kids in an age where not only there's uncertainty, but things are migrating to more of an online business format and just all this crazy shit. Because like, who knows how much the world really is going to change with COVID?
Yeah.
Like,
we're gonna have. I was actually talking to somebody about this, and I can't remember who it was, but like, I can't imagine many new bands are starting right now.
No.
You know, we're gonna have a gap of however long this shit rides out for like moving forward, of like no new bands. It's gonna be weird. You know what I mean? Like, and it got me thinking how many things like that. I mean, that's like a very small thing, but there's like how many things like that are going to be noticed in a decade, you know, in 30 years, that it's like, oh yeah, that is because of when the pandemic was happening, you know, nobody could see each other. So now nobody can look at each other in the eyes or some shit, like, you know, like, who knows what the long-term effects are going to be of this. But
I worry about
the world is changing.
Yeah, I worry about kids and like those development things, because a big part of education and school programs is for children to gain problem-solving skills, gain social. They can't really develop social skills over a Zoom call.
Exactly. It's tough, and a lot of students are depressed. You know, for lack of a better term, they're really sad. It's a somber vibe. Apparently, Julia is on her school teacher, finishing up her faculty of education, and her parents are both school teachers, have been for the last 30 plus years. They say it's never been as somber as it is now in the schools. People are like, you have to stay to yourself and keep within your cohort. And the class sizes are so big, it's tough to do, but you know, when they can do it, they do it. And it's, I guess, really taking a toll on the kids, especially the older ones. The younger ones are like, I feel like, and I don't know. I mean, I don't have kids, so I have no idea what parents are going through and what younger minds are going through. But what I've heard is that the younger ones are you know, everybody's taking it seriously, but it's more difficult to convince the younger ones to like do certain things. You know, keep the mask on. You know, stay 6 feet apart. All that sort of stuff. The older ones, you know, grade 4, 5, 6, apparently, 7 and 8, they're a little bit easier, but it's when you get into the younger ages, it's really difficult apparently. But it's also like, I guess, they're at that age when they're more aware of, what's going on, and the physical ramifications, essentially, of not wearing masks and keeping your distance.
Yeah, and I think it's also in addition to COVID and everything like that, but just the social climate of 2020, especially because so much has happened politically, so much has happened in so many different facets, especially with everything going on in the States. It's crazy to think. And like, I know, like I spoke with my partner, and like we both said, like it low key is kind of scary thinking about bringing a kid into this world, especially with how things are going and how things are progressing in terms of social climate, with people either being extremist left, extremist right, people trying to find a middle ground. It's very confusing right now.
It is. I have friends that, have either just had kids, or they're on their way, or they're like pregnant and are about to have a kid. And I feel for them, because I can't imagine the emotions that they're going through. And then for the ones that have kids that are in school, I really feel for those people. I'm in a great spot in terms of where I'm at. Like, I'm very, very, very lucky. I consider myself very lucky. And Julia and I, we're both, doing okay financially. We don't have kids. We don't have like those kinds of responsibilities. So we can kind of screw our heads on a little bit and figure out what the fuck is going on before we do that and make that leap. Excuse me. But so I'm like, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think about myself in terms of like, oh, woe is me. Like, all I can think of is the kids and the families that have young ones, and those, that single mother that, has one job, doesn't have anybody to send her kid, is way too anxious to send her kid to school. But she has to go to work. So what did she do? She has to send it. Like, it's just, really, it chokes me up to think about, to be honest.
No, absolutely. We're gonna take a quick little break for our second and final music break, and another word from our sponsor, Anchor, and then we'll get right back into things right after that to wrap this up. We'll see you guys in a few. And welcome back to part 3. Thank you to Anchor for once again sponsoring this podcast. Honestly, the biggest thing is just you made a post yesterday about being there for people mental wise, and because so many people, and especially me, like I've been especially on this roller coaster going up and down. Like I got laid off from my job in March, and I just picked up a job in August, and I'm working again, which is nice because I'm making money. But like especially with the second wave incoming, I don't know if things are gonna go back to a lockdown point again in December, especially with the way the forecasting is right now for the numbers, and it's a scary time. And I think especially people in our age bracket, it's difficult to navigate things and try and figure out when to do things and how to do things. But thankfully, like you mentioned previously, we're in a position where like you don't have kids, we don't have kids. It's like figure it out as we go. But it's just that uncertainty about all this.
Yeah. It is. It's very uncertain, but like we've been saying this whole time, everybody's been saying, it's something that everybody around the world is dealing with. We're all in it together, and when we're able to find a solution for it, we'll all benefit from that solution. So,
No, absolutely.
it's like it's a very weird and a very different feeling than like being left out of the party, if you understand that sort of how I'm drawing the parallels, because nobody's like, the party has stopped. Like nobody is partying right now, so nobody's being left out. We're all in that same spot of life is basically changed for the foreseeable future for everybody. It levels the playing field, so you can find some solace in that. I think I do, for sure, because it just makes me feel like I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an uncertain time, and but there's I don't know, it's something that as it progresses, as things move forward, we'll be able to figure it out, because 2020 was the year of like figuring out COVID. Nobody knew that was what our year was going to be. Just going to turn you up a bit, but it turned out to be that. And at the end of the day, hopefully moving forward in 2021, having all this new information about COVID and learning more and more about it, maybe even the hopes of the vaccine, and we actually end up having one, it becomes less of like this anxiety inducing, lockdown inducing thing, because I don't know, everybody has their own way of seeing these lockdowns, and I'm not I'm not one to like think in like a conspiracy theory type of way. So when I read those, it's like I just think it's so ridiculous. But I also at the same time think that there's something to be said about our economies and about like, trying to find that balance between mental health and physical health, because mental health is so important. And it's tough, like I'm doing my part when in session and when I'm doing stuff, but truth be told, I see Julie in trusts, and I don't go anywhere, order food, and if I have to go to the grocery store, same type of vibe, mask that shit up and just all the proper stuff. But I guess that like before, when this all started, I was so scared, like living in fear, not going anywhere, like literally grocery store, no nothing. I didn't even see Julia for 2.5 months at the beginning of the pandemic, because I came back from Europe, and then she came back from the States, and it was that whole thing with quarantining and figuring out what the hell this virus is. And now I've kind of changed my tune, not in the sense of like, oh fuck this doesn't exist, because it's very real. I've had family members die from COVID, but what I've realized is that if I don't like see people that I love, see my aunt and uncle, you know, who live in the middle of nowhere and don't see anybody anyways. Like, it's just all about being safe and being like seeing people that you trust. And I know the government is saying, you know, 10 people, and that's really probably really just kind of used as a base guideline, you know, 10 people, but it can be 10 different people here and then 10 different people there. You know, it doesn't have to be 10 people and that's it, and you're only allowed to see those 10 people now. It's, you know, I don't agree with that. As long as everybody's being safe, you've got to just trust your circle. And it's the people that, you know, my parents got invited to a birthday party, and it was just, there were, I think, 3 couples. So it was them and 2 other people, or 2 other couples. So 6 of them. They talked about it obviously at length. They decided, you know what, like, all these people have been safe. We're going to go. Some of they're 2 of them are doctors, and they've been getting tested regularly. So, like, you know, they felt safe enough. And then one of them started feeling sick. And so that person said, we're not coming, canceled. So it was just the 4 of them, you know? And those are the types of people that we're surrounding ourselves with, responsible people, people that are taking it seriously, that know that it exists, are wearing masks and doing all the proper things. But it's that fine balance between like mental health and physical health. You know, the moment somebody is sick, no, nobody's going out there. That person's not going out. Like, you know, and those are the types of people that we're surrounding ourselves with. And we've been fine. Everybody's been healthy, you know, and again, it's been like the only people that I see are Julia's family, my family, and we saw a couple of my friends a few days ago, but we were in the on the driveway 6 feet apart. We even wore masks too, just to like be extra safe, because we haven't really been like I haven't seen them in a while. You know, so it's just trying to make it work so that you're like doing what's supposed to be done and like what's responsible, what the doctors and scientists are telling us to do, but also like trying to stay sane and feel some sort of normalcy, because it's such a confusing and strange time to navigate, you know. It's tough. It is tough, but I love having this place, and I love, you know, being able to come up here and you know, let it all out and create and do my thing.
What aspects of COVID do you think is going to carry over beyond once it's safe to go back to at least some sort of normal structure in society? Do you think like masks, because masks are going to carry over? Because I know in Japan, masks were always a very common thing over there, that people were wearing masks often. Do you think that's something that we're going to be continuing on, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think masks are here to stay, at least for a while. Yeah, I think it's going to be because it's become such a normal thing to have on and to see people wearing now. It's, you know, it's shocking to see. Like, I was in the grocery store and this old lady didn't have a mask on at all, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, you know, why? It's so easy. Just first of all, stay at home. You know, she was with somebody else. You know, just have that person go into the grocery. Why did you have to go into the grocery store? And it becomes almost, it feels rude. It's like, I'm offended that people don't wear masks sometimes. And so I think that's a big part of the reason why. It's because people see the benefit in it. But I think that it won't become like the legality of it will fade. Obviously, I mean, you can't keep laws like that. Are there laws like that in places where it's culturally accepted?
I don't think it's laws necessarily, like, because Japan always had that, and I think it was just more of a courtesy thing, because in Japan it's not really like I don't believe it's enforced heavily to wear a mask at the time. I think they were just dealing with like potentially spreading illnesses if someone was sick,
Yeah,
or
pollution
if there
and
pollution, stuff like that.
yeah, no, totally. And I totally subscribe to that. But it's by choice, I guess, is what I mean. And I think a lot of people will choose to take it off once. But I do think that it will, like, I think that people will like with masks on. And I think we will for a very long time. I mean, again, like this happened back when the Spanish flu happened, and people were wearing masks, in the early 1900s, and we weren't doing that, right? I've never worn a mask to do anything, so it does fade. Like, these things fade. In terms of other things, I have no idea. It's really so hard to say. I really honestly hope nothing. Like, I kind of just wanted to go back to normal, but I know that that's wishful thinking. I think there could potentially be a universal like basic income of some kind. That's something that's been talked about for a while, and throughout this process, throughout this pandemic going, the government's been helping and doing what they can to help the citizens. Some businesses have been struggling, and I don't think that they've been doing a good enough job there. But when it comes down to it, I think that something like that makes a lot of sense. So having a universal basic income. So how I could see something like that kind of coming out of this. But I think what's going to stick, from what I hear, like and I just thought of this now, is people's appreciation for life, and just the people's appreciation in everybody, because you see what's going on in the States, and I can only imagine not everybody is thinking in that way. But I think I do hear it a lot, and people are really realizing what they had before this pandemic, and how much they really did appreciate it. Like, just like my appreciation grew for touring. I think a lot of people feel that way about a lot of different things in life. A lot of people have become humbled because they've either lost their jobs, or they've this has changed so much socially, and so much within people's minds. I think that's going to be a lasting change. I think a lot of it is for the better. I think a lot of it is positive. But there will be a lot of struggles, for sure. Like, there's going to be a lot of mental health issues moving forward that people didn't necessarily have before. There already are. So a lot of that stuff. But I think it's going to be a toss up of or a little bit of both, a little bit of positive, a little bit of negative. But you can only hope, really.
Yeah.
There's no way of knowing.
If you could take just a shot in the dark, obviously we don't have all the facts, we don't know where this is going to go, but like, in an ideal situation, you mentioned like being thankful for the things we kind of took for granted before. Do you think there's going to be sort of like a live music renaissance, especially in the local community? Because Oshawa specifically,
for
like,
sure.
there's a new venue coming in, bit more theaters being set up now. The Rook is being set up. Like, we're getting all these new places. Do you think there is going to be a live kind of renaissance once we're able to do it in a proper way?
I do. And I think, just like with anything that required groups of people to get together to do, people are going to rush back to that, because people crave that human connection, that interpersonal interaction with people, and having being to like, essentially, when things open up and we're allowed to go out and do that now, that's going to be, I think, a time when you're really not going to there really isn't going to be a time when there isn't a show. Like, there's always going to be something happening. I think people are going to be craving it pretty heavily. People already are and have been. And I think that it's I think a renaissance is a really great way of putting it. I really see things turning around. And it's basically because people need it, and like, these drive-in shows, whatever, that was great, for the interim. Winter's here now. That's, not happening until next summer. So I think people are really going to realize, like, the whole in our culture, as Toronto and Durham Ontario, Canada, the world. Really, it's such a like it's such a big part of life, going to a live show. Even just going to a bar doesn't have to be live music. Just going to a bar, meeting people. I feel for the people that are single right now. The only way to meet somebody right now would be on Tinder, like online and stuff like that. I've talked to, my brother is single. I've got a few single friends. Like, it's tough, but having those outlets to people are going to flock to it. As things open up, restrictions are lifted. Yeah, I feel optimistic about that for sure.
I know you mentioned earlier on in the show, like there's going to be a somewhat of a gap between the new artists coming out because no one's really able to financially commit to something fully or just put things together. But so part of me, and this is the optimist in me, which is a very rare side of me because I'm usually a quite negative person. It's I think it's more of, I think a lot of people are like going to be working on, because I like myself, I worked on some songs that I explored a part of myself musically, which I never really did before. And I'm pretty sure I sent you a couple of those songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like we're going to be seeing some really interesting music coming out after this, once people are able to finally get back into a studio and record and go out and play live.
I agree. I don't necessarily mean that I just mean that, like, with regards to bands, I'm talking like, specifically, your typical 3 or 4 piece rock band, or that kind of thing. And I don't, maybe I don't know enough. I'm not trying to start a band myself right now, so I don't know enough of that. I don't know. I feel like a lot more of it will be bedroom producers and people that are like, making that kind of music, Billie Eilish style records that you can do with your sibling in your bedroom. Like that's probably going to be the vibe, because who are we hanging out with? We're hanging out with siblings, and if we have them, or we're hanging out with family, or we're hanging out with ourselves and we're in our bedrooms producing on our own. You know what I mean? And that's all of it's totally cool. But I think you're right. Like, I don't necessarily. I guess I mean more bands, like, specifically.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, it's just getting a group of guys together. If they're all doing different things, you don't know if someone's going to catch something from someone, so the risk is too high at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, and again, maybe people don't care. I don't know. It's tough to say. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of mixed reviews on COVID-19.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
there's all different viewpoints on it, and a lot of people are going about it in a lot of different ways. So, yeah,
For sure.
Who knows? But I do definitely see a renaissance in terms of the live shows and touring. And the one thing that I don't see coming back for a while is the international touring, just because of flight restrictions, travel restrictions. That's going to be tough. But when it comes back, it's going to come back swinging, and I'm really looking forward to those. And those days are, the best is yet to come, as they say. So.
Best is yet to come. I think that's the perfect way to end this, on an optimistic kind of note. Justin, what's next for you during this COVID time?
Just finishing up a couple of records, braving the winter, and I've got a few like composition gigs, for like in the next couple weeks, that I'll be doing, like just commercial promo video stuff, and just trying to get into the live, like sort of the composing world. So anybody out there that needs compositions, I'm more than willing to do that. You can get in touch with me on Instagram or my website, and we can chat. I'd love to make some custom music.
What's the Instagram and website promo?
My Instagram is it's my first name and last name, but the first letters are switched, so it's Mustin Jelly, and then and my website's www.justinmelimusic.com.
Okay, Justin Meli, we've done it. It's the end.
We've done it. Yes, Matt, it was great.
Great. Thank you guys for checking it out. I'll be back next week with another video, another podcast. I'm working on another Matt Reacts, so that's going to be coming soon. But yeah, subscribe down below, leave your comments. Find Justin's alt stuff in the description down below if you're watching on YouTube.
And
Justin,
stay safe.
stay safe. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Cheers. Good to see you, Matt.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Bye.